Queen of the Nile, or something much darker. You've heard the legend, the beauty, the seductress, the queen who died with a snake to her breast. But the real story? It's far from romantic. Her death wasn't a poetic end to a glamorous life. It was a collapse of a body, of a kingdom, of a myth. Let's start with a smell, a nauseating stench that lingered in the halls of her once great palace, a smell of oil, rot, and something else, decay. When Roman soldiers finally stormed Cleopatra's chambers in 30 BCE, they didn't find a scene of divine transcendence. They found corpses. 3 women on the floor, 1 queen, 2 servants, one of them still gasping. This wasn't a peaceful death. This was a disaster. Cleopatra VII, last pharaoh of Egypt, had once ruled with near-divine status. Her portraits on coins bore the proud profile of a goddess queen. But by the end, she was cornered. Julius Caesar, dead. Mark Antony, dying in her arms. Octavian, the future Augustus, marching into Alexandria. Her fleet, burned. Her people, starving. Her legacy, at risk of being dragged through the streets of Rome in chains. She couldn't allow that. So she staged an ending. The popular version? A cobra, the royal asp, smuggled in a basket of figs. A bite, a few breaths, and silence. Regal, controlled, legendary, but that's likely Roman fiction. In truth, Cleopatra had an apothecary's knowledge of poisons. She'd experimented on prisoners. She knew what killed cleanly and what didn't. There are accounts of a sharp hairpin dipped in venom. Others suggest a drink, hemlock perhaps, or a mixture of opium and wolfsbane. But nothing explains the scene the Romans found. 3 bodies, 2 already stiff. No visible wounds, no snake. And then there's the timing. Cleopatra didn't act alone. Her death was coordinated, timed with Mark Antony's suicide. When he fell on his sword after hearing false reports of her death, he didn't die immediately. Instead, bleeding and broken, he was lifted into her mausoleum by ropes. He died there, in her arms, his blood soaking her robes. Only then did she finalize her own plan. But what kind of queen dies in secret? One who knows she's already lost. The mausoleum had been prepared for this moment, gold-lined, guarded, sealed. Cleopatra had barricaded herself inside with her most loyal women. It was both tomb and stage. If Rome wouldn't let her die as a queen, she'd script the ending herself. Roman sources spin it differently. They paint her as vain, desperate, cowardly. But that's political propaganda. Octavian needed a clean narrative, a foreign queen who killed herself rather than face justice. It made his conquest seem righteous. But Cleopatra wasn't cowardly. She was calculating. Her entire reign had been one long survival act. Born into the incestuous, backstabbing world of the Ptolemaic dynasty, she learned early that power was performance. She took the throne at 18 alongside her brother husband and quickly maneuvered him out. She seduced Caesar not out of lust but necessity. She bore his child. After his assassination, she allied with Antony, another Roman strongman, another lifeline for her crumbling kingdom. She wasn't playing games, she was playing for survival. But the tides had turned. The Battle of Actium in 31 BCE sealed her fate. Her navy scattered, her army defeated. Alexandria, once the jewel of the Mediterranean, was under siege. And now she was alone. She had tried everything. She'd offered surrender, negotiation, her crown, even her children's lives. Octavian refused them all. He wanted her alive, not as a queen, but as a spectacle, a chained trophy in his Roman triumph. So she denied him that. The last image of Cleopatra alive, draped in robes, perfumed, painted, dressed not for escape, but for eternity. This was not suicide. This was stagecraft, a final performance by a ruler who had lost everything but her image. And yet, even in death, she was violated. Her mausoleum was stormed, her treasures looted, her corpse examined. The asp myth was born, an exotic tale to titillate Roman crowds. Her children were taken. Her eldest son, Caesarion, was executed on Octavian's orders. The Ptolemaic dynasty, dead. Egypt was now Rome's. Her funeral was quiet, no parade, no public mourning. Her body was buried, perhaps beside Antony, perhaps elsewhere. The location was lost. Her tomb has never been found. What we do have are the stories, most of them Roman, most of them lies. They tell of Cleopatra's beauty, But she wasn't classically beautiful. Coins show a sharp nose, a strong jaw. Her allure was intellect, charisma, power. She spoke 9 languages. She studied astronomy, medicine, politics. She sailed with her fleet, rode into battle. She wasn't a courtesan, she was a commander. But Roman poets had their fun. She was the siren who lured good men to ruin, the witch who ensnared Caesar, the whore of the Nile. Convenient, isn't it? A powerful woman dies, and history turns her into a bedtime story, a cautionary tale. But peel back the fiction, and what do you see? A woman born into chaos, raised in violence, forced to marry her brother, forced to kill her sister, forced to sleep with power to protect her people, and in the end, forced to die. Her death wasn't glorious, it wasn't romantic, it was grim. 3 bodies, a sealed room, an empire watching, and silence. Cleopatra didn't die with a snake at her breast. She died with the weight of a kingdom on her back, with the eyes of Rome at her throat, and with the stench of defeat, not perfume, in the air. Not a goddess, a woman, and that's what made her dangerous. Dangerous enough to survive nearly 2 decades of civil war, Roman ambition, and betrayal. Dangerous enough to change the course of empires with a whisper. Dangerous enough that even in death, her story had to be rewritten, to make her smaller, softer, less threatening. But she was never small. Cleopatra was the final roar of Egypt before the silence of empire. Her death marked the end of thousands of years of pharaonic rule. She wasn't just the last queen, she was the last chapter. And maybe that's the final tragedy, not how she died, but how she was remembered. Not the asp, but the erasure. Not the poison, but the propaganda. The Romans killed more than a queen. They buried a civilization under marble and myth. So the next time you picture Cleopatra, don't see her reclining in silk with a serpent. See her standing on the deck of a warship. See her reading scrolls by lamplight. See her holding a dying lover while enemies breach the gates. See her standing tall in a burning palace, refusing to kneel. That's Cleopatra, not a victim, a force. And when the dust settled and the empire celebrated, they missed something vital. Cleopatra didn't vanish. Her shadow lived on. In every story whispered through veils of incense. In every stone carving that defied the desert wind. In every woman told she's too ambitious, too clever, too proud. Her memory outlived her marble effigies. The silence of her tomb is loud with questions. What if she had won? What if Egypt had remained free? What if a woman, brilliant and bold, had rewritten the future instead of being erased from it? Cleopatra's end was not an epilogue, it was a warning. Empires fall, myths fade, but power? Power never dies. It waits, it watches, and sometimes it wears eyeliner and speaks 7 tongues. So no, she wasn't just a lover of emperors, she was an emperor's equal. And no, she wasn't merely a queen, she was the end of the world that came before, and the beginning of a world that feared what she represented. Knowledge, defiance, legacy. That's why they buried her story beneath fiction, because the truth was far more dangerous. And perhaps most tragically, her story reminds us of how history is often penned by the hands of the victors, etched in stone by those who sought to erase her fire, not preserve it. But fire leaves marks, and Cleopatra's flame still flickers. In today's museums, her face stares from coins and busts, chiseled into time but stripped of context. Schoolbooks still reduce her to the woman who slept her way to power. Rarely do they speak of her economic reforms, her military expeditions, her deft manipulation of diplomacy and myth. She wasn't just navigating politics, she was surviving the collapsing weight of an empire, trying to hold together a world no longer hers. She ruled during one of the most turbulent chapters in ancient history. Civil war tore through Rome. Provinces shifted loyalties like tides. Assassins shaped succession. And amid this, a young queen from Alexandria dared to imagine that Egypt could remain sovereign, that her people could write their own future. The cost of that dream was her life. But even in her death, Cleopatra wielded a kind of control. She denied her enemies the spectacle they craved. No chains, no Roman applause, no public humiliation. She chose silence over submission, and in doing so, she became something else. Not a relic, not a warning, but a symbol. A symbol of resistance, of pride, of refusal. So when we remember Cleopatra, we must choose how to see her, not through the cracked lens of empire, but through the eyes of a woman who ruled, fought, and fell with dignity. Not as legend, but as legacy.